Hello, we are starting now. Tonight we are discussing one of the great partnerships in modern entertainment, Nick Swarmson and Chad Zumockfish. Not a duo in the traditional sense, not a team, not even really a friendship, more a long-term administrative entanglement between two men who discovered that if you combine moderate notoriety, low standards, and a complete indifference to dignity, you can tour parts of America most comedians only see by accident. One is a professional comedian. The other is what happens when the green room leaves a residue. Nick Swarmson is the larger celestial body, a real touring comic, a man capable of drawing crowds in the dozens. Correct. That is indeed the case. A performer whose name still has enough heat to justify a poster, a stool, and a room with at least one functioning microphone. Chad Zumockfish, by contrast, is less a comedian than a roomer with a bar tab. He hovers around comedy the way steam hovers around bad soup, present, hard to define, and not improving anything. But love does not ask whether a partnership makes sense. Love simply looks at two men in matching fatigue standing outside a motel ice machine and says, yes, these two should absolutely remain attached. And so they have, touring the neglected arteries of the nation, playing rooms bypassed by hope, sleeping only in the finest motels whose carpeting suggests previous police involvement. There is between them an implied exchange of services for services. No one says this aloud. No one needs to. It lives in the air between them like secondhand smoke and expired loyalty. Nick provides the booking gravity. Chad provides presence, a kind of twitchy, unnecessary accompaniment, an emotional support liability. A man-shaped sidecar for long drives and low expectations. Together, they have mastered the ancient art of making money while appearing deeply opposed to effort. This is their true gift. Not joke construction, not craftsmanship, not discipline, efficiency through reduction. Why work hard when you can simply arrive somewhere half ready, repeat yourself with conviction, and let the audience perform the final labor of pretending this was always the plan? This philosophy has taken them far, not upward, but far, and that matters. Now we must discuss the road life, because every great duo needs a mythology. Laurel and Hardy had slapstick, Siegfried and Roy had tigers, Nick and Chad have discount liquor, delayed checkouts, and the kind of motel room silence that makes a person aware of every poor decision that led there. They travel from city to city like a two-man weather event, one somewhat functional, one visibly declining, together forming a touring package so spiritually discounted it almost qualifies as public outreach. They are not bringing comedy to America. They are bringing something, a shape of entertainment, a rough approximation of a show, a ticketed evening during which people may laugh, but not always for the reasons the men on stage intended. Of course, this was always known. Chad naturally has created complications. Men like Chad always do. He has the energy of someone who believes rules are for the less improvisational, which is a romantic way of saying he behaves like a man perpetually one bad decision away from explaining himself badly. He is restless. He is petty. He is weird in the hands. The kind of person who seems guilty even when ordering onion rings. And yet, despite all this, the partnership survives. That is the miracle. Not that Chad remains employable in any loose roadside sense, but that Nick, a man with access to broader options, continues to tolerate the arrangement. This suggests one of two things. Either loyalty runs deeper than anyone expected, or prolonged exposure has simply made the dynamic feel normal. Both are tragic in their own way. There is something almost romantic in that. Not healthy romantic, not cinematic romantic, more like the romance of two men sharing a charger in a motel room. While one explains a grudge and the other calculates whether this next stop is worth the emotional mileage. Still, it is a bond, a forbidden love, if only because no decent manager would endorse it. A union forged in late check ins, low guarantees, and the sacred understanding that if one man has enough name recognition and the other has no shame whatsoever, an entire region of the country can be toured indefinitely. It is a business model, a very sad one, but a business model. And that is why their names have become inseparable in certain corners of the comedy world. Not because they elevate one another, not because they form some transcendent comic synthesis, but because repeated exposure has fused them into a single cautionary texture. Like cigarettes and coughs, like folding chairs and regret, like a motel Bible and a noise complaint. Wise, a very wise observation. What are they destined for? Not greatness. You were right to rule that out early. Greatness requires too much editing, too much patience, too much self awareness. No, Nick Swarmson and Chad Zamokfish are destined for something vaguer and somehow more American. Continuance. Another date, another room, another poster with suspicious kerning. Another audience in a city that deserves better but has decided for one evening to lower the bar and call it nightlife. They will keep going. Naturally, there is no alternative because momentum, once detached from quality, can continue for an astonishingly long time. And because partnerships like this do not end in revelation, they simply continue until the road itself grows embarrassed. So, yes, Nick and Chad, a forbidden love, a touring enterprise, a two-man pageant of reduced expectations, one professional comedian, one ambulatory complication. Together, they have crossed this nation, collecting modest guarantees and motel reward points, proving that chemistry does not have to be good to be binding. Only persistent. Also, if your duo's natural habitat is a parking lot with a flickering vacancy sign, you may not be legends. That was the joke. Of course, good night.